Before I share my story, let me ask you, what would you do if the person you trusted most, the one you built your whole life around, shattered your family with a single betrayal? I thought I knew my husband. I thought I knew myself. But the day I discovered his affair, everything I believed about love, loyalty, and family fell apart. This isn't just a story about heartbreak. It's about the moment you realize you have a choice, to let betrayal break you or to rise from the ashes and write your own ending. So settle in, because what I did next changed not just my marriage, but the way I see myself forever. The day I found out about my husband's affair, I thought my world had ended. I never imagined I'd be the one with the last laugh. It started with a phone call. Not the kind that comes in the middle of the night, the kind that makes your heart drop before you even answer, but the kind that interrupts a perfectly ordinary afternoon. I was in the kitchen, chopping onions for dinner, the radio humming softly in the background. My husband, Mark, was supposed to be working late again. Our daughter, Emily, was upstairs, finishing her homework, her music drifting down the stairs. The phone rang, and I wiped my hands on a towel before picking it up. "Hello." There was a pause, then a woman's voice, soft, hesitant, unfamiliar. "Is this Mrs. Turner?" I hesitated. "Yes, this is Anna Turner. Who's calling?" Another pause. "I'm sorry to bother you. I just thought you should know your husband and my sister have been seeing each other. For months. I thought you deserved the truth." The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. I gripped the counter, my breath coming in short, shallow bursts. I don't understand. Are you sure?" She sighed, her voice trembling. "I'm sure. I found messages, photos. I'm sorry." I hung up, my hands shaking. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the phone, the knife still in my other hand, the onions forgotten. I felt like I was floating outside my own body, watching my life unravel in slow motion. Mark came home late, as usual. He kissed me on the cheek, his lips cool, his eyes tired. "Long day," he said, dropping his bag by the door. "Sorry I missed dinner." I nodded, forcing a smile. "It's okay, there's a plate in the oven." He thanked me but barely touched his food. He spent the evening in his office, the door closed, the light glowing under the crack. I sat in the living room, staring at the TV, not seeing anything, my mind racing. I wanted to believe it was a mistake. I wanted to believe the woman on the phone was lying, or confused, or cruel. But deep down, I knew the truth. I'd known for a long time, in the way you know a storm is coming even before you see the clouds. The next morning, I woke before dawn. I lay in bed, listening to Mark's steady breathing, watching the first light creep across the ceiling. I thought about our life together, the house we'd bought, the vacations we'd taken, the daughter we'd raised. I thought about the promises we'd made, the dreams we'd shared, the way he used to look at me like I was the only person in the world. I thought about the distance that had grown between us, the late nights, the missed dinners, the way he'd stopped reaching for my hand in the dark. I thought about the way he'd started locking his phone, the way he'd flinched when I asked about his day, the way he'd smiled at me with a sadness I couldn't name. I got up, made coffee, packed Emily's lunch, and tried to pretend everything was normal. After Emily left for school, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at Mark's phone. It was sitting on the counter, charging, the screen dark. I hesitated, then picked it up, my hands shaking. The passcode was the same as always, our anniversary. I scrolled through his messages, my heart pounding. At first, there was nothing unusual, work emails, group texts, reminders. But then I found them, messages from a number I didn't recognize, saved under a man's name. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Last night was amazing. I miss you already. Wish you were here." There were photos, 2 selfies, hotel rooms, dinners, gifts. I felt sick, the truth settling over me like a cold wave. I put the phone down, my hands trembling. I sat in the kitchen, staring at the wall, listening to the clock tick, wondering how long I'd been living a lie. That night, after Emily went to bed, I confronted Mark. I showed him the messages, the photos, the proof. He didn't deny it. He just sat there, his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted any of this." I stared at him, my heart breaking. But you did. You destroyed our family. He nodded, tears slipping down his cheeks. I know. I slept in Emily's room that night, holding her close, listening to the sound of her breathing, wondering how I would ever put the pieces of my life back together. The next morning, the house felt like a museum of our old life. I moved through the rooms in a daze, making coffee, packing Emily's lunch, folding the laundry that Mark had left in the dryer. I watched him from the kitchen window as he left for work, his shoulders hunched, his steps heavy. He didn't look back. Emily was quiet at breakfast, pushing her cereal around her bowl. She glanced at me, her eyes searching my face for answers I wasn't ready to give. Is Dad mad at you? She asked, her voice small. I shook my head, forcing a smile. No, sweetheart, grown-ups just have hard days sometimes. She nodded, but I could see the worry in her eyes. She was only 12, but she was old enough to sense the tension, the way the air in the house had changed. After she left for school, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the ring on my finger. I twisted it around and around, remembering the day Mark had slipped it on my hand, the way he'd promised forever. I thought about the years we'd spent together, the good times, the hard times, the way we'd always found our way back to each other. I thought about the woman on the phone, about the messages, about the photos. I wondered who she was, what she looked like, what she had that I didn't. I wondered if Mark loved her, or if he was just running from something he couldn't name. I called Ruth, my older sister, the one person I could always count on. She listened as I told her everything, about the phone call, the messages, the confrontation. Oh, Anna, she sighed. I'm so sorry. Do you want me to come over? I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. Not yet. I just needed to hear your voice. She was quiet for a moment. You're stronger than you think. You'll get through this, and I'll be here every step of the way. I hung up, feeling a little less alone. The days blurred together. Mark moved into the guest room, coming and going at odd hours. We barely spoke, except about Emily, her school, her homework, her upcoming piano recital. We tried to keep things normal for her, but the cracks were showing. Leela, my neighbor and closest friend, started coming by more often. She brought casseroles, bottles of wine, and a shoulder to cry on. She listened as I poured out my fears, my anger, my heartbreak. I just don't understand, I said one night, my voice shaking. How could he do this to us? How could he throw everything away? Leela hugged me, her arms warm and strong. Some men are cowards, Anna. They run when things get hard, but you stay, you fight, you love. I wiped my eyes, grateful for her kindness. I don't feel strong, I feel broken. She squeezed my hand. You're allowed to be both. Emily's piano recital was the following week. She practiced every night, her fingers flying over the keys, her brow furrowed in concentration. Mark promised he'd be there, but the night of the recital, he called to say he had to work late. Emily's face crumpled, but she didn't cry. She played her piece beautifully, her hands steady, her heart brave. I sat in the front row, tears streaming down my face, clapping until my hands hurt. Afterwards, I hugged her tight. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. You were amazing. She smiled, her eyes shining. I did it for you, Mom. That night, after Emily went to bed, I sat on the porch, staring at the stars. I thought about the life I'd built, the family I'd tried so hard to protect. I thought about the woman I used to be, confident, happy, trusting. I wondered if I'd ever find her again. I made a decision. I would not let Mark's betrayal define me. I would not let him take away my dignity, my strength, my future. I would find out the whole truth, no matter how much it hurt. The next morning, I woke up determined. I needed answers. I needed to know who she was, how long it had been going on, and what Mark was really hiding. I waited until he left for work, then started searching. I began with his office. Mark was always careful, but not careful enough. I found a second phone in the bottom drawer, tucked beneath a stack of old tax returns. It was a cheap burner, the kind you buy at a gas station. My hands shook as I turned it on, scrolling through the messages. There she was. Her name was S. The messages were intimate, full of inside jokes, plans to meet, confessions of love. There were photos, too, selfies, hotel rooms, dinners, gifts. I felt sick, the truth settling over me like a cold wave. I took pictures of everything, saving them to my own phone. I needed proof, not just for myself, but for Emily, for Ruth, for anyone who might try to tell me I was imagining things. That afternoon, I called Ruth. "I found another phone," I whispered, my voice shaking. "It's worse than I thought." She was silent for a moment. "Do you want me to come over?" I nodded, tears slipping down my cheeks. "Please." She arrived within the hour, wrapping me in a hug, letting me cry until there was nothing left. "We'll get through this," she promised. "You're not alone." That night, I confronted Mark again. I showed him the phone, the messages, the photos. He didn't deny it. He just sat there, his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted any of this." I stared at him, my heart breaking. "But you did. You destroyed our family." He nodded, tears slipping down his cheeks. "I know." The next day, I called a lawyer. I needed to protect myself, to protect Emily, to make sure Mark couldn't take away the house, the savings, the life I'd built. The lawyer was kind, professional, and blunt. "You need to be careful," she said. "Don't let him know you're planning anything. Keep gathering evidence. Protect your finances, and above all, protect your daughter." I thanked her, feeling a strange sense of relief. For the first time since I found out, I felt like I had a plan. I started keeping a journal, writing down every detail, every conversation, every look, every moment that felt off. I wrote about the phone, about Mark's late nights, about the way he flinched when I asked about his day. I wrote about my own fear, my own guilt, my own growing suspicion. I wanted to believe I was wrong. I wanted to believe that my marriage, my family, my life were safe. But deep down, I knew the truth was waiting for me, just out of sight. The following week, I decided to follow Mark. I felt like a spy in my own life, my heart pounding as I trailed his car through the city. He drove to a hotel on the edge of town, parked in the back, and went inside. I waited in the parking lot, my hands gripping the steering wheel, my breath coming in short, shallow bursts. After half an hour, I saw him come out with a woman. She was younger than me, with long dark hair and a bright, confident smile. They laughed, holding hands, then kissed before getting into separate cars. I snapped a few photos, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. I drove home in a daze, the images burned into my mind. There was no denying it now. Mark wasn't just cheating, he was living a whole other life. That night, I sat on the porch, staring at the stars, the phone in my lap. I thought about the years I'd spent building a life with Mark, the memories we'd made, the dreams we'd shared. I thought about the promises we'd made, the vows we'd spoken, the way he used to look at me like I was the only person in the world. I thought about Emily, about how I would tell her, about how I would protect her from the fallout. I knew I couldn't keep pretending. I knew I had to confront Mark, to demand the truth, to take back control of my life. The next morning, I waited until Emily left for school, then sat Mark down at the kitchen table. My hands were steady, my voice calm, but inside I was shaking. "I know everything," I said quietly. "I know about the other woman, I know about the hotel, I know about the second phone." He stared at me, his face pale. For a moment he tried to deny it, but then he slumped in his chair, his shoulders sagging. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I never meant for you to find out." I stared at him, anger and heartbreak warring inside me. "How long?" He looked away. "A year, maybe more. It started as a fling, but then, I don't know, I couldn't stop." I felt tears sting my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "How many others, Mark? How many lives have you been living?" He shook his head, his voice barely audible. "Just her, I swear, but I lied about everything else. The money, the trips, the phone, I'm sorry." I stood, my hands clenched at my sides. "Sorry isn't enough. You lied to me. You lied to Emily. You made me feel crazy, like I was imagining things." He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Don't, just don't." He packed a bag and left that afternoon, the door closing softly behind him. I watched from the window as he drove away, my heart breaking and healing at the same time. I called Ruth, my voice shaking. "It's over, he's gone." She came over with coffee and pastries, her arms full of comfort. We sat on the porch, watching the world go by, talking about everything and nothing. "You did the right thing," she said, her voice firm. "You stood up for yourself, that takes guts." I nodded, but the doubt lingered. Did I, or did I just blow up my whole life? She squeezed my hand. "You told the truth, that's never wrong." The days after Mark left were a blur of awkward conversations and quiet strength. I told my closest friends the truth, but I didn't share the details with everyone. I didn't want to be the subject of gossip, but I also refused to hide in shame. I went to work, kept my head high, and did my job as best I could. Emily was quiet at first, her eyes searching my face for answers. I tried to shield her from the worst of it, but she was old enough to sense the change. One night, as I tucked her into bed, she looked up at me, her voice trembling. "Is Daddy coming home?" I hugged her close, brushing her hair from her face. "I don't know, sweetheart, but whatever happens, we're going to be okay. I promise." She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I love you, Mom." "I love you too, Emily, always." Word spread quickly, as it always does. My mother called, her voice tight with worry. "Are you all right, honey? Do you want me to come over?" I told her I was fine, that I just needed time. But the truth was, I felt hollow, as if the ground beneath my feet had shifted and I was still waiting to land. Ruth came by every day, bringing food, helping with chores, sitting with me in the quiet moments when the grief threatened to swallow me whole. "You're not alone," she reminded me. "You have people who love you. You have Emily. You have yourself." At work, people whispered. Some offered quiet words of support, others just stared, their curiosity barely hidden. I heard the rumors, how Mark had been seen with another woman, how I'd kicked him out, how our perfect family had fallen apart. I wanted to scream, to defend myself, to tell them the whole story. But I knew it wouldn't matter. People believe what they want to believe. Mark tried to reach out. He called, sent texts, left voicemails full of apologies and promises. He wanted to see Emily, to talk, to explain. I let him come by for short visits, but I kept my distance. I watched him with Emily, saw the way he tried to make her laugh, the way he hugged her a little too tightly, the way his eyes filled with regret. One afternoon, he sat on the porch with me, his hands twisting in his lap. "I'm sorry, Anna. I know I hurt you. I know I hurt Emily. I wish I could take it all back." I looked at him, searching for the man I'd loved, the man I'd built a life with. "You made choices, Mark. You chose her. You chose to lie. You chose to risk everything we had." He wiped his eyes, his voice breaking. "I know, I wish I could fix it." I shook my head, feeling a strange sense of peace. "You can't. All you can do now is be honest, with me, with Emily, with yourself." He nodded, standing to leave. "I'll give you space, but I want to be here for Emily. I want to try to make things right." I watched him go, the door closing softly behind him. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. Emily struggled, each in her own way. She drew pictures of our family, always with Mark standing a little apart. She asked if he was coming home, if we could all be together again. I hugged her tight, telling her that families can look different, that love doesn't disappear just because people make mistakes. I started seeing a counselor, working through the pain, the anger, the grief. I learned to forgive, not for Mark, but for myself. I learned that healing wasn't about forgetting, but about letting go. The weeks passed, and slowly we began to heal. The house felt different, quieter, but also lighter. I started to find joy in small things again, a cup of coffee on the porch, a walk in the park, a good book at bedtime. Emily laughed more, played more, started to believe that life could be good again. Mark called often, checking in on Emily, asking if he could take her for dinner, for a movie, for a weekend away. I let him, knowing that she needed her father even if I didn't. Spring brought a gentle sense of renewal. I found myself drawn to the little things, planting flowers in the garden, baking bread on Sunday mornings, calling Ruth just to hear her laugh. I started to feel like myself again, or maybe someone new, someone who had survived heartbreak and come out the other side softer, but stronger. I kept going to therapy, learning to trust my instincts again, learning to forgive myself for the things I'd missed, the boundaries I'd let slip, the love I'd given so freely. I learned that forgiveness wasn't a single moment, but 1,000 small choices. Choosing to smile at Emily's jokes, to answer Ruth's calls, to say yes to new invitations. I started volunteering at the local animal shelter, walking dogs and cleaning kennels. The work was messy, but it gave me a sense of purpose, a reminder that I could still make a difference, even in small ways. I made new friends, women who had their own stories of loss and healing, and we laughed together, cried together, celebrated every small victory. Mark and I settled into a new rhythm. He picked up Emily on weekends, took her to the park, helped with her homework. He was patient, gentle, never pushing for more than I could give. Sometimes we talked about the past, about what went wrong, about the ways we'd both changed. There were still hard days, birthdays, anniversaries, moments when the old pain flared up, but they were fewer, softer, easier to bear. Leela moved away. She sent a letter before she left, apologizing one last time, wishing me happiness, promising to stay out of my life unless I wanted otherwise. I read her words, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. I realized I'd already forgiven her, not because she deserved it, but because I deserved peace. Emily thrived. She made new friends, joined the soccer team, started drawing again. Her laughter came easier, her hugs tighter. We created new rituals, movie nights with popcorn, Saturday morning pancakes, long walks in the park with our dog, Daisy. I watched her grow braver, kinder, more resilient, and I knew I was doing something right. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the fireflies, Emily leaned against me, her head on my shoulder. "Do you think we'll ever have a big family again, Mom?" I hugged her close. "Maybe not the way we used to, but we have each other, and we have friends who feel like family. Sometimes that's even better." She smiled, her eyes shining in the twilight. "I like our life, Mom. I like who we are." I felt tears prick my eyes, but this time they were happy tears. "Me too, sweetheart, me too." I started writing again. Journals, letters, stories for myself and for Emily. I wrote about forgiveness, about starting over, about the way love can survive even the deepest wounds. I wrote about the lessons I'd learned, about the hope I still carried in my heart. I realized that healing wasn't a destination, it was a journey. Some days the past still hurt. Some days I missed what I'd lost. But most days I felt grateful for what I'd found. My own strength, my daughter's love, the quiet joy of a life rebuilt on truth. I was still here, I was still standing, and I was ready for whatever came next. Sometimes, the people we trust most are the ones who break our hearts the deepest. I never imagined that my husband's affair would destroy our family, or that I'd have to rebuild my life from the ground up. But life has a way of testing us, of showing us who we are when everything we thought we could count on falls away. If you've ever had to start over after betrayal, or if you've ever had to forgive someone who hurt you, I hope you know you're not alone. Healing isn't quick and it isn't easy. But with time, honesty, and a little bit of grace, it is possible. Sometimes the real strength is in letting go, not just of the people who hurt you, but of the guilt and shame you never deserved to carry. Would you have confronted your partner or tried to keep the peace for the sake of your family? Have you ever had to choose between protecting your heart and protecting your home? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe and share it with someone who might need a little hope tonight. Thank you for listening and for being part of this family. Until next time, take care of yourself, and remember, even after the deepest betrayal, you can still choose to begin again.